Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the rainy Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. This is your April episode of Trek Talk Live. I'm your host, Steve Doyle, along with sidekick Doug Hodgdon. And this is coming to you from Model Railroad Academy. Good to be with you tonight, Mr. Clickety and Mr. Clack. Doug, you have been busy since our last episode.
Well, I try to be.
Yeah, okay. So you've got your Railroad Wanderlust hat on again, not
Yeah.
Anyway, where'd you go?
Well, now some of you folks might be familiar with the history of the Arlo Guthrie song about the city of New Orleans. Well, that was on my mind. It's been on my mind for a long time. And I had the opportunity a week or so ago to make the trip from here, which would be the Empire Builder, to Chicago, and then change trains and ride the city of New Orleans all the way to New Orleans. And it was a wonderful trip, a total of about 1,300 miles.
Wow. Just as good as the song, or even
better? Well, I hope you folks read my blog that'll be coming up in the MRIA website. And certainly much better than flying to New Orleans.
A lot more fun, too.
Yeah,
sure. As you may or may not know, Track Talk Live is brought to you by Model Railroad Academy. And we would invite you to sign up for our weekly e-newsletter, which is chock full of news about model railroading issues, layouts and videos and articles, blogs by Doug, and lots of other good stuff. And you can sign up by clicking on the tab right below the screen you're watching here. We are taking questions live tonight, and we'd love to have you send them in. So there's a place to enter those questions, and we'll try to get it to you in the next hour. So let's take a look at the first one that's come in here. Doug, what do you think?
Well, let's see what it is.
Okay.
Let's check it out.
Let's just go up to the top here and say, Tom has asked, how should a beginner approach a first layout design in order to ensure smooth, reliable operation? Then secondarily, he asks, do you recommend DC or DCC? I would recommend DCC if you have the opportunity to, unless it's just a very simple, oval track that you're doing if you're not running multiple trains at the same time. But DCC opens up such a different, a much wider world.
So much you can do with DCC. Yeah. I mean, DC is getting pretty archaic nowadays. I mean, DCC is very.
Okay, so Tom asks the beginner's approach to a layout design in order to ensure that it runs reliably. So, what should he be thinking of? Grades?
Well, first of all, I'd
curves,
say quality materials.
Quality materials. So
starting
with the bench work. Right.
Quality bench work, and whatever you're using for sheeting, quality. You don't want wavy wood, crooked wood.
Unless you're trying to go for the plains look, which I don't think you are.
Yeah. So, and then quality track work, quality gear throughout, because it'll pay for itself in enjoyment in the long run.
Yeah, Fast Tracks makes radii that you lay down between the tracks so you get smooth curves. You don't want to have any abrupt or radical changes in grade. I think the most you probably ever want to do is 2-3%.
Keep your curve radius as easy as you can so the trains are fighting their way around the curves.
And that's only half the battle. Then after that, you're talking about the equipment. Clean track, well lubricated engines, clean wheels. I mean, there's just so many other aspects to it, but it all starts, as you say, with the bench work. And don't forget, you can read Doug's multi-part blog on designing and creating and actually building a layout. You can get that through your weekly e-newsletters. So that's another good reason to sign up for it. So Wally has asked, is there a rule of thumb for how high a backdrop should be so it looks right? Higher than the tallest building? I would say yes. Some fixed proportion of the depth of the layout. I have a 4x8 table layout against a wall. Floor to ceiling is not feasible, and I believe would look somewhat too much because there would be much more backdrop than layout. Long question, but is there a rule of thumb for you? Because you've built and designed, and built a number of layouts.
Well, if you can see my valence right here, now because of space limitations, I couldn't go any higher with my backdrop, and so I use a fascia to hide my lighting. You don't want to show the source of your lighting.
So the lighting is actually up here, recessed.
That's going to affect your backdrop, but generally speaking, as far as being natural looking, your horizon line should be at eye level, which means the backdrop will be even higher. But of course, most model railroads that just wouldn't work. It'd be too high.
Yeah.
So in my case, Steve and I are on stools here, and when we're operating my layout, we sit on stools so that it's not, you're closer to eye level with the layout. So long story short, it depends on your situation. There's theatrics involved. Just do what looks right to you.
But eye level is usually a pretty good benchmark to start with. By the way, this is Doug's S-scale layout behind us. Just give us a brief description of it, Doug. We're only seeing one part of it, the engine house region.
Well, we've shown it off before. I model in S-scale using Proto 64 gear, and I love Southern Pacific. I've modeled Southern Pacific my whole life, and so this is a semi-fictitious branch line in the Los Angeles Basin.
Say that 3 times.
Switching line that runs down to basically Riverside, California, and I've used a lot of modeling license to make that work. But my idea is to show off how much fun you can have in a limited space.
This is at the back of your garage.
Yeah, we're in my heated garage.
Yeah.
This is 36 square feet, so I'm trying to show, okay, hey, you can have a lot of fun at 36 square feet. I have a waybill system that I use.
I think you've shown that off, how you've laminated the cards and the information that's on that, and I'm sure we'll see a blog on that at some point.
I do have a blog plan for that. I printed the waybills on my computer and then laminated them, so they're durable.
Good man. Charles has asked, I would like to have my Lionel trolley cars stop and start about 5 seconds along the track in town and at the end of the line. How can I do this?
Well,
there's a circuit board you can buy for that.
3 rail, you have some advantages over 2 rail. That 3rd rail you can use to trip signals or crossing gates or anything like that. And I've actually done that with 3 rail using a timer relay, an adjustable timer relay.
And where would you get that?
Probably at an electronic supply house.
Like an Axeman? Because we have here.
We have Axeman or,
so not a surplus, possibly. More reputable.
Yeah, probably not any place like a Radio Shack. It would be something that would sell commercial electronics. I bought electronic gear from Mauser Electronics down in Texas, as an example. And so that's one way of doing it. When your solid axle spans to the outer 2 rails, then it'll complete a circuit to trips relay. You can certainly do it other ways. There are photo sensors that you can use. Circuitron makes a good sensor you can do with the photo sensor, and that's the same kind of a deal. It's an adjustable stop board, so you can adjust the time delay.
Good question, though. Thank you, Charles. Appreciate that. Don't forget, send us your questions in live right now, or if you don't happen to get through right now, we are answering questions offline. Doug at modelrailroadacademy.com or Steve at modelrailroadacademy.com, and we'll help you out that way. Ian has asked, I want to build a collapsible 8x4 layout as I have limited space available. Has anyone in your club got a basic layout construction plan? When folded down, I would like the layout to protrude no more than about a foot. Any help on this would be appreciated. So we're trying to think. It doesn't sound like he wants to build modules, because there are lots of articles out there online and even videos on Model Railroad Academy that show how to build modules. But it sounds like this is something he wants to swing down, either swing down or swing up out of the way. Right?
Well, yeah.
Possibly hinged against the wall.
I'm thinking it's like those old-fashioned metal picnic tables where you can fold them up.
Okay.
And, the trouble is, when you have scenery, of course, that's a whole new ballgame.
You better super glue, gorilla glue everything.
If you just had track, okay, fine. Fold it up. You could probably even build it on one of those collapsible picnic tables.
Yeah.
But,
or you could just, if you happen to have, if it's plastic fill or something else, have all the structures built. And when you put the thing up, you've got markings, or you can have pegs that put them back into place exactly where they're supposed to go. Scenery like shrubs and trees may not be as big an issue because you can glue those down. The structures you may want to pick up and take out of the way and then just put down again. But that's kind of a cool concept. No, our club does not have anything like that. Everyone's got theirs either built in module form, or actually with benchwork and legs, or the shelf layout like you have here.
Right? Yeah, mine doesn't collapse. At least,
Yeah,
at least not on purpose. So
we're not in earthquake
yeah,
territory.
yeah,
We might see how well it works.
But Ian, now that's a good question. You can
Yeah.
send more details, and maybe we could help you further.
Yeah, good deal. Another Charles has asked, do you have any information on kits or models available from the Best Friend, which ran from Charleston to Hamburg, South Carolina during the 1830s? And I'm hoping I'm pronouncing Hamburg right, if not Hamburg, the German way. But I think we had looked at that question earlier, and you said you thought there might be one done in HO.
I swear that it was Bachmann that made an HO model of the Best Friend of Charleston. I could be wrong, but that's the only one I'm aware of. And I would research it on the internet.
Just Google it.
And just Google it, see what you can come up with. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Neat
information's got to be out there. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, more questions coming in. Let's go back up to the top and take them in order. Let's see. Edward has asked, I'm relatively new to the hobby and was wondering what type of maintenance do you perform on your locomotives? Do you follow a set schedule for that maintenance? Thank you for your time. P.S. I run O-scale and use MTH DCS system. I should, but I don't. I should have a schedule, but then again, I should be doing lots of things in life I'm not necessarily doing.
You know the classic saying, don't you? The squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Yeah, and I'll also guarantee you that whenever you have a layout tour or people visiting, your layout will normally screw up. It's just Murphy's Law. Yeah. However, you can mitigate that by certainly, if you know you're having guests come over, you certainly want to do maintenance. You want to clean wheels on rolling stock. You want clean wheels, especially if you're running, you know, DCC, which is a little more sensitive to dirt and grime on the wheels. If that's where you're getting electrical pickup, certainly if it's coming through the tender, you want to clean those off. You can use a Dremel tool to do that.
Rubber polishing wheel.
Rubber polishing wheel, and a little bit of, you know, I think I use like a lacquer thinner on mine. Just don't want to get it too close to the plastic, but that seems to work well. I think probably once a year, if they're getting relatively good use, you want to lube the engines, lube the motors.
Act up.
Yeah.
You know, in fact, if you invite people over, you know they're going to act up. I mean, that's what trains do. So the minute you invite people over, they'll act up. Yeah. So try to set yourself on either a 6-month or a 1-year thing. If you run the trains a lot, that actually helps to keep your train. Yes, I know, Doug. Here's the old motto. Remember this.
Run trains, because the trains like it, and the trains actually stay more efficient when you run them.
They like to be exercised.
They like to be exercised. Okay. Hans has asked, I would like to know the diameter of 31-inch and 33-inch HO metal wheels in millimeters. I'm interested in converting a few special cars that have plastic wheels and change them to metal. I'm concerned that I might have clearance issues on a few cars. Could you measure both with a digital caliper, hold it flush against the flange, then what is the diameter for both? I'm sure 31 inches versus 33 inches is close, but having an exact measurement would be helpful. Thanks in advance, Hans. Hans, if you send Doug that same question to Doug@modelrailroadacademy.com, he's got a caliper. He'll measure some of those wheels for you, and then make sure your return email address is on that, and we'll get it sorted out for you. Okay? We don't want to don't have the time to do it here, and
I have to dig out my caliper.
I have to dig out the caliper. But everything is so organized here.
Yeah.
Doug, there's got to be a look, a caliper.
Yeah.
I hate this guy. It's way too clean. Oh, jeez. I see the antithesis. So Keith has asked, I'm beginning a small N-scale layout in the corner of my apartment, and I'm looking for advice regarding tight curves. Since I am adamant about my layout having at least one loop for continuous operation, it will necessarily have quite a few tight curves. What scenery tricks do you use to ensure everything looks as realistic as possible? For example, I may try to hide the tightest curves in tunnels or behind trees. So you're already one step ahead of the curve there, so to speak. That's a good deal. I was interested in hearing about other illusions or guidelines you use to keep your small layout from looking too toy-like. Well, the tightest curves, that would be a good idea to hide it behind structures or in tunnels or tree line or something like that. The ones that are visible, you want to make as broad as you can that the width of your layout will permit, right?
And then, well, but if you have tight curves in the hidden areas, make sure they're not too tight.
Too tight.
Because you don't want stuff derailing back there.
Yeah. So maybe lay it in, just pin it in, run a train back there, and make sure they're not derailing. You know, and you want to make sure those tight curves are as smooth as you can make them. You know, any little kinks or anything out of gauge is going to send your trains off the rail. So, and
that's the other axiom we know very well is that if always goes bad in the spot you can't get to.
You can't get
the trains. The
in
trains
a tunnel,
don't go bad in the front; they go bad in the back.
Always.
So
another Murphy's law, whatever this Murphy is. Ben has asked, I recently bought a Walther's White Tower restaurant kit, HO scale, and want to do some interior detailing on it when I put it together. Are there any good manufacturers of stuff like diner booths, tables, etc., that make products for this sort of thing? How about any articles or general advice on the subject? Well, you're getting into this at a really good time, Ben. You may be in it for having been in it for a while, but Shapeways has allowed people to print the most unbelievable stuff. They're even printing stuff in that scale, and we're a relatively small scale, but you can buy booths, you can buy, you know, chairs, you can buy stools for a bar, you can buy anything, even right down to frying pans and you know, pots that you can put on the stove back there. I actually have done a interior decoration on what is it, the big donut on my layout right in the front.
Oh, the Route 66 donut shop.
Shop. Yeah. And you can see in the windows, and I put donuts back there, and I have pots and pans and glasses on the counter and stuff like that. So there are lots of sources of that. Walther's might be a good source for you to start when you look for detailing, but there are lots of companies out there. So
Selly. Yeah. Selly has been making cast parts for a long time. They're sold by Bowser now.
Okay.
And then I was going to say Model Tech.
And Model Tech.
I just bought S-scale stuff from Model Tech. I got stuff over here in my workbench.
Yeah. They've got HO. I think they got N. They have O, and they have S. So that would be another good source. They do a lot of exterior, vents and stuff clutter you'd find around outside of the buildings and stuff like that. But you could also do a search again. But I would check out shapeways.com because I think when you go on that page, there are tens of thousands of items on there. And if you put in HO or 187th, you'll come to a category, and I'm sure it will show thousands of details. So anyway, thanks very much for your question.
Let us know.
Let us know. Absolutely. Coming back up. Okay, John asked, what is the preferred comfortable grade of track for going to a new level, say 6 centimeters above the other track for a bridge, so the train won't bog down and slide back in HO or double lot scale?
Of course, he would ask that in centimeters. But,
of course.
So I could tell you in inches what that would be, 2%, regardless of what kind of measurements you're using. But 2% grade, which would be 2 centimeters and 100, or however you want to do it in centimeters. So 2% is really about the max you want to do, unless you're doing an industrial line or logging line or a mining line or something.
You go a little more, maybe 2-3%.
Yeah.
But if you're looking for something gradual, 2% would fit the bill.
Yeah.
So, and you can do that cookie cutter style. You can use that stuff from Woodland Scenics,
the foam
stuff that starts out at virtually zero, no thickness, and then ramps up either to 1 inch or 2 inches, and I think it's even got 3 inches. So
the neat thing is, if you buy yourself a digital level, I'm sure you can get one that'll read it out in millimeters, and that'll read the percent of grade out for you real easy. You don't have to do any math at all.
Yeah, I've even got one on my cell phone.
Yeah.
Me too. Easily done. Let us know how it goes. Peter asked, I recently bought around 110 feet of HO track for some 200, for $20 US. And it came with some cars and a cheap locomotive. I've hooked up some track just to see if everything works, but the loco cuts out frequently and doesn't make it more than a few inches before cutting out. I wiped the tracks down with alcohol and cleaned the wheels, and it made the loop, but then it started cutting out again. Any suggestions on what else I can try? Doesn't necessarily have to be scale specific.
Could be pickup wipers, depending on how the juice is picked up from the wheels.
Mm-hmm. If you look, if you turn the engine upside down, take a look at how the wheels are getting power from the wheels to the motor. You would normally see a little wire rubbing up against the back of some of the wheels, and make sure that those are touching, that there's good tension against the back of the wheels. Make sure that they're not dirty. You could run some alcohol up behind that too, and maybe they're gunked up. Anything else you might?
Well, alcohol is handy in model railroading in general.
Yeah, I would recommend don't use your 20-year Jameson or push. Well, you might push most,
but yeah, it sounds to me like a pickup wiper issue. I mean, it could be a bad motor too, for all I know,
but it's odd that it only went a couple of inches. He cleaned it and then it went around once.
It's acting more like a bad pickup wiper.
Okay.
I would say.
All right. Let's go back up here, and Peter, let's see, we just covered you, Peter. Hopefully that answered your question. Roy has asked, hi, I've been trying to come up with an idea for a small layout like the door size layouts I keep seeing. I know I want to go with steam trains, but not sure where to go from there. I would like some suggestions for some books with history, pictures, and maps of steam engines, steam locomotives. Any suggestions? Not sure he means where the maps of where steam locomotives once went, or he actually means the graphic that shows
track plans, maybe a prototype track plans.
Yeah. Well, your hobby shop's always a good place to start if you have a brick and mortar hobby shop. Otherwise, you could go online and Model Railroader or Model Railroader or Model Railroad has just a whole series of books on
there's a
steam
million
locomotives. I mean, it just doesn't have to be them. Yeah. Railroad Model Craftsman, you name it. Yeah, they're out there.
Yeah, depending on what you want to do with your layout. Now my layout was designed as a switching layout. There's no loops, there's no continuous running, strictly switching. So there again, it depends on what you're looking for to begin with.
Yeah.
But you can certainly look at real railroads and see what they're doing and get ideas.
Yeah, let us know if you have any more information you could give us, Roy. That'd be great. That's looks like 23 minutes past the hour here in the Central Time Zone, where it's now 7:24. And this is Track Talk Live with Steve and Doug, coming to you from Model Railroad Academy. Doug is showing off his most recent project. This is what happens when you're retired. The guy's got way too much time. Tell us what you have here.
Well, this is a G-scale LGB car, and I've been doing maintenance on commercial restaurant trains now for about 50 years.
Yeah, and run around the top of the wall in restaurants, right?
A guy named Eddie Peck is the guy who originally hired me 50 years ago, and he's long gone now, but his name lives on. So I decided to do this Eddie Peck bar car just for him to run around on the bar in the building that he had built.
Press-on lettering, or there's actually
vinyl, stick-on vinyl letters, and I did them. They're actually kind of they're a little bit hokey. They're glittery letters, but I thought it'd be okay for up on a train shelf. But
actually might shine up. Or you could always hit a little bit of dull coat if you wanted.
Well, you want it to show up good. This is a little different. But Broadway Pizza in the Twin Cities, good pizza and trains. If you're ever in the Twin Cities.
And neither of us has any commercial interest in Broadway Pizza LLC. Well, Doug might, because he cleans their track and installs them once in a while.
I should.
So anyway, Bill has asked, I have an MTH-9 HO scale. I'm using DCC. Are there any CVs to change to make the ditch lights come on steady, instead of flashing with the horn? Well, I would say contact MTH because every decoder, every manufacturer has different CVs. There are a few that are in common, like a factory reset would normally be 03, but then after that, the sky's kind of the limit. So
Yeah.
you'd want to see if any printout material came with
There should be a manual.
Yeah, manual, or go online and look it up.
Yeah.
Frequently, you'll find those manuals online, or just call MTH.
Yeah,
I'm sure
MTH is
very
they're good people. Just call them up and ask them. They might be able to tell you just lickety split.
Yeah, and we should tell you that we invite you to sign up for our weekly e-newsletter at the tab right below the picture you're watching, and it's full of information on model railroading, on scenery, on bench work, on painting, on weathering. Doug has blogs. You get video clips as well. If you become a full-time subscriber or a full-fledged subscriber, you get access to the entire Alan Keller library, plus dozens of other videos as well, available 24/7 online streaming. You'll never have to pay for them again, folks. But they're the full money on those, and they are, you know, totally classics. Even though some of them are on layouts that no longer exist, every time I watch those videos with Alan Keller, I see a new idea. But I also like to see that transition too, between, you know, what was done maybe before I got back into model railroading in the year 2000, and what's done now. I mean, it's just a night and day contrast.
You always learn from the old techniques.
Absolutely.
Sure,
Nick has asked, have you ever tried the JMRI Wii throttle instead of a manufacturer's throttle? A cheap cell phone costs less than a proprietary throttle and can be used in any DCC system using JMRI. There's actually a huge layout here in the northern part of the Twin Cities that uses that. You've seen it at work.
They're younger guys, and they're into
gadgets,
techie
stuff. Techie weed
and they have JMRI signaling. I mean, the whole ball of wax. It's really great, and they're younger guys who are really into the tech. I mean, well, we're both old timers.
We're getting a little long in the teeth here.
I'm not really into running trains with my phone, but for people that are, it seems to be working great.
Yeah, and it probably is a bit of the wave of the future when we're all dead and gone. So, but otherwise, I use a standard Digitrax throttle, and you have NCE, right?
Yep.
So anyway, to each his own. Parker has asked, now I'm beginning to look at scenery. I see kits from Woodland Scenics, but they're crazy expensive. Let's say I want some hills, a tunnel, a river, and a small town on an 8x4 board, N scale. How much should this cost, and where should I start? I would ask the guys at my local store, but I fear I will be taken advantage of.
Well, we could take advantage of them right here.
Just send personal checks to Doug and Steve.
Just kidding. Who is this? Who are we talking about now?
This is Parker.
Parker. Hey, Parker. We're just kidding.
Yeah,
but no, really, if you're familiar with the scenery techniques from the old days, I mean, nobody had any money to do that stuff, and it wasn't available anyway. So we learned how to do it. We made paper mache. We used plaster, old grocery bags, newspaper,
paper towels. You don't have to buy the plaster impregnated paper towels that can get costly. I tend to throw money at a situation, which is really bad when you're about to to go into retirement. But a lot of people are frugal in this business, and as you say, back in the old days, everything cost a lot, and sometimes it didn't even exist commercially. So you would do hills by doing screen work with regular screen wire or chicken wire, or strips of cardboard to form the hills, hot glue them down, and the next thing you know, you've got a web outline of a hill or valley or something like that, and then you just you get some of the like a sculpt-a-mold type product, which you can buy in massive bags, more than you'd probably ever need, and just soak your paper towels in that and lay them on the top, and Bob's your uncle.
When I was a kid, my newspaper route had to finance my hobby, so there you go.
Yeah.
So you learn, you learn those techniques because you don't have any other options.
Yeah.
If you have specific questions, email us.
Yeah.
And we'd be happy to help you out with them.
And don't forget that Model Railroad Academy has dozens of layouts available just on building a model railroad layout, and that aspect surely comes up because everyone wants to do, tunnels. Everyone wants to do a mountain or a hill because it adds just a little more interest. Yours is probably the only one that doesn't, but you can see right here, if you move your shoulder, Doug has a little culvert here that he's notched into his fascia. And so that is actually, what is basically an urban switching layout has added a little bit of contour to it, and it's great.
I'm modeling what is basically flat land in
Yeah.
the LA basin. So other than little things like that, my layout is fairly flat. I have a little bit of a hill behind the roundhouse and so on.
Yeah.
Little up and down on the fascia, but just to give it interest. I think if it was dead flat, it would look hokey.
Not as good. And even if you're doing something on the back of a door,
Yeah.
you want to have some sort of contours for visual interest, and it is not difficult to do. Just watch the videos. Read the blog, right?
See right here, it dips down for the road a little bit, right?
Notched out again.
Yep.
So anyway, thanks very much for the question, Parker. James has asked, what's the most expensive train or train set you've ever found? That I've bought personally? Ooh.
Well, I know there's some brass.
My brass Zephyr was fairly expensive, as was the Berkey and the Mountain, and those are brass.
I'm trying to remember. Oh, why can't I think of the name now?
How expensive is that?
1/32 scale brass I've seen out at working with the G scale trains. Why can't I think of the name of it right now? Just very expensive, custom made brass locomotives that come in the actually wooden packing box.
Yeah. So I think he said
thousands of dollars.
Yeah, he said there have been many out there, such as the one train set that American Pickers picked up for $8,000. What's the most expensive train or train set you have ever found on TV, the internet, or in your local train store? A local train store, you're not going to find anything in the $8,000 range. It can be O scale, S scale, double aught scale, HO scale, TT scale, N scale, G scale, or T scale. That just about covers them all.
Well, I wouldn't. First of all, I wouldn't be buying a locomotive that costs thousands of dollars, no matter what.
No.
So
the most I've gone for is probably $2,500, and I don't have many of those. And you know, they're willed to the next generation when I'm finished with it. But the closer you get to retirement, the more you tend to kind of play those a little more. A little closer to the vest,
and you don't have to spend a ton of money to have fun. That's the fun doesn't come from the spending of money. It's the enjoyment of creating a miniature railroad system.
Yeah, and the camaraderie of maybe building it with someone, going to flea markets. Oh, don't do that. Okay, going to flea markets and finding inexpensive trains and making them go. There's lots of stuff out there you can do. However, if you really would like to spend lots of money,
call us.
Yeah, I might have one for sale. Okay, let's see. Rick has asked, here's a DCC subject. He's converting 1960s and 70s Athearn locomotives to DCC. He's also wiring his layout to DCC. He wants to know the difficulty. Well, the locomotive shouldn't be too difficult to do, right? No. The only problem he might have in those older locomotives might be an engine problem, a motor problem. If they're not nicely tuned, he may find that if it still runs herky-jerky, he may want to change out the motor.
Right. Make sure they run well on DC. If it doesn't run well on DC, it's probably not going to run well on DCC.
Cool.
Although you can adjust, there's tuning you can do through DCC, but get a locomotive that runs well in the first place. And a lot of guys, of course, would replace the motor, like say an old Athearn motor, replace it with a can motor. Yeah. The Northwest Short Line can motor, and it makes a big difference. Flywheels. Yeah. So. Yeah. And as far as doing the track wiring, it shouldn't be any more difficult than regular DC. Well, it's actually easier because you don't need all those blocks and toggle switches and all that stuff. So in a lot of ways,
don't be intimidated. Again, Model Railroad Academy has scads of videos about how to do that. You can find them, find other videos online. There's tons of articles. There's books and pamphlets that have been written on the subject. Don't be intimidated. DCC is largely the way the hobby has gone. And if you're doing anything more than running one locomotive at a time, you and I think it's the way to go.
Yeah. Dive into it and send questions if you have a problem.
You got that right. Let's see. Dwayne has asked, I'm getting back into the hobby after quite a few years out of it. Wanted to get into the DCC portion of the hobby. What would you suggest for starting out when you're on a budget or with a budget? Well, I think Digitrax the Super Chief, I think that I had was around, I want to say $400 to start. That came with a throttle and the command station, and that got me pretty well situated. And then, the larger the layout got, the more I wanted to have power blocks. So if there was a short somewhere, I could isolate it. I'd know which block it was in. So then I would need, for Digitrax anyway, a DB150, which was a secondary station, largely for power. But it's a few $100s, would you say?
Yeah, I have an NCE 1 amp system, and of course I wish I could remember what the name of it was now. It's you can see it on their website, NCE beginner system, just a small 1 amp, and it's great for testing. I mean, I don't need my 5 amp for that. So
and by the way, Digitrax, a beginner Digitrax is nowhere near what I just wanted you either. So I just knew I was going to be growing and growing exponentially, and so I needed more power, more juice. So I'm running off 2 amps now too. So anyway, let's just see the next one. Entertain them while I'm doing this stuff.
Dance? Should I dance?
Yeah, you might. Do you know of any companies that do custom paint jobs specifically for S and O scale?
Ooh, well, my favorite one, we talked about this on another one of our episodes, that my favorite one is out of business, the one in Sparks.
So why are you teasing them?
I'm sorry. My switcher right behind me here was painted by them.
I'll tell you what we can do. We don't want to promote anyone. There are very good, reputable companies out there. If you drop either one of us an email, I'm sure we can get you lined up with a couple of links for that. Okay, but good question. Yes, there are many who do that, and just S scale and O scale are so much larger that the delivery, the liveries look great, the paint jobs look great. It's easier to work with because it's a little bit bigger.
We love S scale.
So David had asked, I'm struggling to understand a reverse loop on DCC. Do I need to install auto reversers on each track that turns back on itself? If so, where do I make the connections? I have connections every 3 feet and at the switches. I have drops to the main. I have read books, but I guess I am still a little bit foggy. So we'll go to another station break.
On the reversing section itself, what you need would be, well, I guess you call it like a mini bus. You're going to tie into the regular DCC circuit, and then you're going to feed your reversing loop with multiple feeders off of that reversing board that you put in, but that's off of the far end of the reversing board, and so you basically put in a separate bus that handles nothing but that loop, and then you can tap feeders into that bus. Does that make sense?
Is there there are lots of videos out there. Model Railroad Academy has them online, DCC wiring and layouts. You can find, I mean, there's probably dozens and hundreds of them, but it probably would be a good idea if we do a blog at some point in the future and kind of explain that, or get our whiteboard out and and make it a little bit easier for folks, because you talk about buses and next thing you know,
the DCC reverser makes it really easy. I mean, basically it's an in and out on that board, and you hook the input from the wires from the DCC through the board out to the loop, and you're done.
Call it a day.
Yeah.
Okay. Al asked, what is DCC? Digital Command Control.
Yep.
Did I get that right? Did I pass?
Yes. Hey!
DCC. If you want to know more about it, we've just given you a bunch of sources to learn about it. So, have to keep going up. More and more questions coming in.
Wow.
John has asked, I have an NCE unit that has a Brutus Power 10 amp. Is there anything I can do to protect my engines? Okay, right now I have 95 feet of double track and expanding as I go.
Well, you need circuit breakers.
There you go.
You need to break those layout into power districts and install circuit breakers so that you're not running the full 10 amps everywhere. And if you do have a short, it only affects that particular power district, not your entire layout.
Right. And the way you've done it on mine and yours, when you see the one that has a short, a light will come on.
Yeah. So, and usually there's a way you can hook in a remote LED, so you can have a panel or something that would show where a short might be in your layout. And it's neat, because if you have if you don't have circuit breakers and your layout shorts out, sometimes you go, where in the heck is the short? I can't find it.
And again,
yeah,
where will it happen?
in the
Where
worst
it's
place.
least convenient to get to. Right.
So yeah, circuit breakers will take care of you. There's a lot of different brands.
Let's see. Do you have to have the same type of loco to run a consist? And do you have to have the same decoder for a consist? You want to take those one at a time?
No and no.
No.
Because of the compatibility that's designed into DCC, multiple manufacturers all work together.
Yeah,
and
they all have the same standards, and the NMRA has set those standards so that you can use a decoder from this company and a decoder from this company in two different sorts of engines and consist them together, and that shouldn't be a problem.
Well, if the two locomotives are happy once you consist them, then you can adjust. You can fine-tune the speed control on the locomotives to get them.
So one isn't actually pulling the other one because it's going faster.
You don't want them to fight each other, but you can correct that easily.
Yeah, and DCC is a great way to do it. So let's see. Robert commented, "Hi, Stephen Doug. This is always dangerous when you read questions."
Hi, Robert.
Live. In response to the gentleman looking for best friend of Charleston model, Lionel made a version for 3-rail 5 to 8 years ago.
Well,
I've seen this train for sale occasionally at train shows, but the cost is quite high, $400 minimum and up. Might check eBay, get anything on eBay, and see how they go. But maybe not a flea market, but bigger show might have them. But go online and check eBay.
Yeah. Thanks for that one, Robert.
Thanks, Robert.
I wasn't aware of that one.
Rand has asked, I have been thinking of building a G-scale layout in my garden for a while and have a few questions. Does the track have to be secured to the ground at every piece, or can I get away with securing just a few? Would I have any problems if it made, I think it's 90-degree turns? No, some of that is missing. If it made 90-degree turns with R2 30-inch pieces.
30-degree pieces.
30-degree pieces?
Yeah. Well, R2 is fine. It's R2 is made for smaller equipment. So I use R3 when I do the pizza restaurants, just to be safe. I don't want the trains to be fighting around the curb. So I use R3, but R2 is fine if you're using smaller equipment.
How about securing the track?
Well,
can it float a little bit like we sometimes do? Because maybe he's not going to ballast it, or will if he is ballasting it, that glue will kind of keep it into place.
You can actually you can buy connectors that will rail joiners that you can actually screw on with a little set screw that hold the track sections together, so they won't work loose like they normally would with regular rail joiners. And around here, where you get a frost, you can use Class 5 gravel, which is that kind of sharp gravel where you can pack it in good under the tracks. So, and once that sharp edge gravel really packs well, and you can lay your track on that, and that'll help prevent any frost problems. But if something moves around a little bit, fine, just fix it.
Yeah.
But now
he also asked how weather resistant is everything. Well, I need to bring in all the atomic components when it rains.
Well, the equipment is made to be outside. I mean, that's the whole idea. But a lot of guys will build like a little train shed or a little roof, something or other that they can run their train under and park it when they're not running it. That keeps it out of the weather, keeps it out of the sun. Yeah. So you could just build a tunnel or a train shed, park the train in there when you're not using it.
A little train shed would look realistic too.
Yeah.
So maybe make a passenger train out of that. So Matt has asked, I model an HO, but I found some nice ON30 engines that have piqued my interest. Sorry for the newbie question, but would the ON30 engines look disproportionate to the HO ones?
Well, yeah, I mean, because you're talking, the scale is still twice as big. I mean, you're talking HO and O. So if you're comparing HO locomotives, they look like a little kiddie train compared to the O gauge. Just because they're narrow gauge doesn't mean the scale is small.
Right, but what you may want to do is use the ON30 in the foreground and maybe think about moving the HO to the background.
Well,
you know, for a little bit of forced
well, okay. If
compression.
he's talking about that, that would be
Yeah.
an idea too. Use it for perspective. Yeah.
And then as you go back toward the HO,
Mhm.
your structures are getting a little smaller, cars will get a little bit smaller, trees will get a little bit smaller, and it makes it look like much more depth to the layout.
That's a good point.
That's a bit of the theatrics that you and I have done in our layouts, and to a greater extent, probably I have, because I'm modeling, you know, HO and N behind my S scale to make it look like the scene is a mile or two deep. Not always successfully, but it's good.
Well, I have scaled down things on my layout. My layout's only 2 feet deep, so yeah, by all means, that would work.
Okay, let's. Well, time for a station break. You're watching Track Talk Live with Doug and Steve, coming to you from Model Railroad Academy. We invite you to sign up for our weekly e-newsletter right below the screen you're watching. Don't forget to send us your questions. We're on once a month. You'll always get a notice when that's coming up. And the weekly e-newsletter has video clips. It's got Doug's blogs and other tidbits, information, product releases, and keep you up to date. And that's weekly in your in basket.
No, I did a blog. No, I'm not sure if they've posted it yet. The blog before the one in the city of New Orleans is the blog on our O-scale club layout here in the Twin Cities that has just recently moved to larger quarters.
Right. I'll have to ask Bailey where that's
I'm not sure if that's been posted yet or not, but
okay.
So that one, and then after that comes the City of New Orleans blog, and then I'm not quite sure what's going to be next. It'll be a surprise.
Yeah, it'll be a surprise. There we go. A long question. Well, geez, we've got a lot of questions coming in here. Holy cow, a lot of ones we
might have to go to a 2-hour show.
My goodness, I'm trying to get it back to the one we just had. Mike asked, have you ever used the Rolling Thunder from Broadway Limited Imports? If so, how do you like it? If using it on a large layout, does the sound from the subwoofer and engine seem separate? Rolling Thunder? I guess that's a sound system.
Yeah. It's, well, I mean, the trouble is that you don't get very good low frequency out of a little speaker in a locomotive. And of course, what scale is he in?
Broadway Limited Imports.
HO, maybe. You know, the smaller your scale, the smaller that speaker is. And it's hard to get good low frequency. And so I've seen it done where the low frequency is there, but not overdone. And then if you have sound in your locomotive, that should be the moving sound should be the primary sound. And then just fill in with that Rolling Thunder.
Okay. Jason has asked, as part of our forthcoming 3,710 miles on Amtrak, we've been watching a lot of videos, which has piqued my son's interest in adding Amtrak to our fleet of passenger cars. I love this, by the way. Trouble is, I'm a K-Line 21-inch runner through and through, but K-Line didn't make the Amtrak Superliners, so who do I go with? I found a set of Lionel cars in aluminum, which is appealing but not cheap, and then there are plenty, seemingly, of MTH Premier cars. Any suggestions?
Is he 2-rail or 3-rail? He must be 3-rail, huh?
K-Line?
You know, to be honest, I don't know. I can't answer that question. I'm not familiar with what's out there.
Well, you might do an eBay search under model railroading, or do a Google search under your scale, and just put all the information you can and see what comes up. Sorry, we can't help you necessarily or specifically with that one.
I just rode on the real cars.
Yeah. We're all jealous. Hal has asked, I don't have a DCC controller, and both my tracks are straight DC. If I bought a DCC-enabled loco, would it run on my system without being altered? Without being altered. Would it run on my system without being altered?
No, because it needs a signal. It needs a radio signal. I've suggested to guys who are gradually changing over that you can actually put in a toggle switch on your layout. That would be the double pole toggle switch where you could select DC or DCC, and then you can select a particular track. Like, for example, on a double track layout, you could have a toggle switch for each line, and then run whatever you wanted to. And then gradually, most guys just
you're going to find you left DCC so much you're going to switch them both off.
Gradually, most guys change over to DCC, but that's an easy way to do it as you're converting.
Okay. Stephen has asked, hey, he spells mine the same way. It's nice to see you, gents. Thank you. There are many different layouts to research to find one that fits your budget. What are some of the best books or places to look to help set up a track plan?
Oh, we answered that quite a few times, but there's so many books out there. There's books on track planning, track layout design.
Every magazine, every large magazine has written volumes on that sort of thing. Some old, tried and tested layouts, and some that are a little more complex, depending on how wild you want to get. And how much room you have, and there's lots of considerations.
What you're looking for, you have to figure out what type of layout you want to build. You know what your equipment's going to be, what era, blah blah blah, type of scenery, and all that kind of focus in. And then, generally speaking, when you see these layouts that are published, like great model railroads or so on, there's a track plan included. So if you see a model layout that you like, then you can look at that track plan.
Look at mine. It looked like spaghetti.
Yeah.
Spaghetti junction.
There's so much information out there.
Let us know how it's going. Doug has written a blog on designing and building a model layout. You may want to look that up on MRA's site too. So Ron has asked, thanks for your question, Stephen, appreciate it. Ron has asked, I've started a rather large HO scale model railroad in my basement, 12 by 24 feet, with a long run along the walls and eventually back to an upper level. It's operational at a basic level. I built it as an ultimate dream of my own, but also to enjoy building and working with other modelers. However, I've had a hard time, hard time finding other modelers to help to build and run the railroad layout. I've thought about rejoining the NMRA in the area, but they've had some severe political problems. Really? Any other ways to contact other modelers in my local area? I was just going to say, to get to that part, I would have said that's a good place to start. And I'm not sure what the political problems are. I'm an NMRA member, and Twin Cities Division runs really.
There are special interest groups in the NMRA. If you don't like your regular group, you can join a special interest group. Or no, like for me, I've modeled Southern Pacific my whole life, and I'm involved in various Southern Pacific groups. And so, if you don't like the group you're in, there's probably plenty of other groups to get involved with that would have your same interest.
The good thing is he's an HO scale, and it's the largest followers, has the largest number of people out there. If you see in the newspaper a train show coming up, sometimes they'll do modular layouts in various scales there. That would be a good way to see someone, or maybe to find someone while you're just going around chatting, or ask the guy who's got his layout set out, where could you find help for your layout? I'm sure they'd be more than happy to help. If you have layouts in your city, try to get a tour of those. I
mean, I'm sure. Check out clubs.
Go to the back of some of the magazines. They'll have, the club card sort of for particular scales, and it will say in various cities who meets where and when, and you can get some names that way. That might be a good way to do it too. So
regional conventions, I mean, kind of spread your network out a little bit, especially with the internet nowadays. It's easy to talk to people all over the world, so you're not limited in any way. Yahoo's
got we're members of the S-Scale Yahoo layout page. I'm sure there are probably dozens for HO, but certainly we know there's probably more than a handful. You could join those and just say, is anyone in Patuxent? And let me know if you're within so and so miles of where I live. Send me an email.
Well, I think model railroading is that's what makes it the world's greatest hobby, is that there's many facets to it. And there may be people who are not into the same type of model railroading that you're in, but that doesn't mean there are not people out there. So,
and some people may be really good at track work. Some people maybe love to do nothing but build structures. So there's lots of interest in there. You may not have all of them. I certainly don't. Doug has more than anyone I've known, but that has taken a lot of time for you to fine-tune those skills. But getting together with the group, that socialization is really one of the nice aspects
Yeah,
of model railroad. You can
yeah.
do it solo, or you can do it with the couple of guys and enjoy that, the social aspect, the camaraderie of it, and accomplish something at the same time.
Find guys that share your same passion, whatever that is in the hobby.
Yeah. Peter has asked, I model in S and O scale, and the most frustrating thing is the fact that you cannot use DCC on these scales. And you're left with MTH's DCS and Lionel's legacy system. Is there any way to digitally command both of these brands with one system?
Well, he's probably talking about MTH, or doesn't Lionel make some
Lionel's
S?
also making some S as well.
No, actually, I'm working with a 3-rail guy here in town, and we removed the MTH equipment and put in standard DCC decoders, and you can certainly do that. They come with MTH has CAN motors. I mean, the motors are in there. The drive is good.
Yeah, one of our guys brought over a locomotive, I think, to Minnesota Heartland layout, and he had gotten it either from MTH or Lionel, and it had a decoder in it, a sound decoder in it, and we were able to operate it on DCC. So I'm not quite sure what you might be asking about, Peter. You might do a little more research on that.
Some of it,
before you rip out the good stuff.
There are features that aren't exactly the same. It's kind of the same, but not exactly the same. So,
okay, we got about 2 minutes left here. Ron has asked, what's an easy way to connect track feeders to bus wires around the layout? The typical approach is to use a terminal strip or to strip a small portion of the insulation from the bus wire, solder the feeder wire to the bare wire, but this can be a real challenge. Yeah. Once you do it, you get used to it. If you have any experience with the clamp-on bus connectors, I've seen several types, including some suitcase connectors.
Yeah, I think the suitcase connectors are great, but what gets people, frustrates people about those suitcase connectors is don't try to put them on with the pliers, because sometimes they don't always go together right. Buy their tool,
a crimping tool,
the suitcase crimping tool for that particular brand connector, and you can crimp it and it'll work every time.
Good. Well, thanks for the suggestion. Thanks for the question, Ron. Jeff has asked, I have an old Hallmark brass engine, steam engine, that needs some restoration. Any suggestions who to contact? Online. Probably a good way to start if you don't know guys in your local vicinity who do that sort of thing.
If he's talking about, cosmetic or mechanical, or there's probably somebody in a group in his area that would have experience working on those. Yeah,
again, a Google search will probably turn up dozens. I don't know whether they would necessarily be in your area, but just insure the thing, ship it off, and they usually are pretty good about it.
Model railroaders are generally a pretty nice bunch.
Yeah, that's why they got involved in it. So. Someone asked, getting started with operations, all of my friends use different methods to operate, switch lists, car cards, etc., which I have tried them all. Any recommendations?
Well, I use a derivative.
This will probably be the last question.
Yeah, I could spend an hour talking about this. I use a derivative of the Doug Smith card system from back in the early 1960 Model Railroader magazine, and I will show that off. That's an upcoming blog on operations. If you're interested, send me an email with your email address, and I'll send you back some preliminary information.
Good.
I like operation.
Yeah.
Good.
Doug at modelrailroadacademy.com, and he'll set you up. Well, Doug, anything scheduled for the next month? Any more trips out of town that you can wrangle from the missus?
Well, actually, my next rail trip, I think, is going to be to the Owens Valley of California to see the brand new museum featuring the restored Southern Pacific narrow gauge 10-wheeler. And they've got it all together, and they're going to have a big party on the 4th of July with basically all of the steam guys in the Southwest who have helped make it happen.
And I've got a train trip coming with my 13-year-old grandson to celebrate his birthday in May. We're taking the Empire Builder down to Chicago.
All right.
Union Station.
All right.
Go to the Museum of Science and Industry. It's been years since I've been on that train. And then, just take the L wherever we can up to Wrigley Field to see a Cubs game, and then back out to O'Hare to fly home. So I'll be able to report on that for our next show at the end of May.
I clocked them. They go about 80 miles an hour. most of the way. So
good.
And
And
a smooth ride too.
excellent. Well, thank you all for watching. We really appreciate it. Again, you've been watching Trek Talk Live with Model Railroad Academy's Doug Hodgdon and Steve Doyle. We'll see you again next month. Don't forget you can view the podcasts of any of these broadcasts for the past year on the Model Railroad Academy site under live events. So thanks again for joining us. Stay dry if you're anywhere here in the Twin Cities, and we'll see you next month. Bye-bye.